In a historic decision that has sent ripples across the globe, the United States Supreme Court has struck down the sweeping tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump. This ruling fundamentally alters the landscape of global trade, marking a significant shift in how international commerce will be conducted moving forward. The ruling reasserts congressional authority over commerce, emphasizing the importance of checks and balances in the U.S. government. It limits the executive branch's emergency economic powers, ensuring that such significant decisions require broader consensus. This decision dismantles a key pillar of Trump's foreign policy, which heavily relied on tariffs as a tool for leverage. It forces a worldwide recalibration of economic strategies, as countries now have to navigate a new trade environment. The case brought into question the president's unilateral authority to impose major economic measures without the approval of Congress. This ruling underscores the necessity of legislative oversight in economic matters. The decision promises a return to a more predictable, rules-based trade system, which many believe will foster stability and growth. However, restoring trust among international partners will take time and effort. Leaders in Europe, Asia, and Brazil have welcomed the move, viewing it as a positive step toward de-escalation of trade tensions and renewed engagement in diplomatic dialogues. Most importantly, the court's decision is a powerful statement on the constitutional balance of power. It sets a precedent that will shape the actions of future presidents, ensuring that executive power is exercised with caution and respect for legislative processes. This landmark ruling will undoubtedly influence the global economic order for years to come. The tariffs at the heart of this case were born from President Trump's America First agenda, a policy framework that sought to prioritize American interests in global affairs, especially in the realm of trade and economic policy. This approach was aimed at rebalancing trade relationships and protecting U.S. industries that were perceived as vulnerable to foreign competition, particularly in sectors like manufacturing and heavy industry. Invoking national security as a justification, the Trump administration imposed sweeping tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, arguing that a strong domestic metals industry was essential for the country's defense and economic stability. These measures were later expanded under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, allowing the administration to target additional countries, including Brazil, with even stricter trade restrictions. Brazil, despite being a close political ally of President Trump and led by the like-minded Jair Bolsonaro, suddenly faced a steep 50% tariff on key exports such as steel, a move that was directly linked to the shifting political landscape and ongoing controversies surrounding Bolsonaro's presidency. This unprecedented use of economic leverage created a tense diplomatic standoff between the two nations, while also inflicting severe hardship on Brazilian industries that relied heavily on access to the U.S. market for their survival. As the economic pressure mounted, Brazilian officials found themselves increasingly open to overtures from U.S. technology giants, who saw an opportunity to shape Brazil's emerging digital regulations and expand their influence in the country's rapidly growing tech sector. Ironically, while the tariffs were intended to support a political ally and protect American industry, they ended up empowering U.S. technology interests in Brazil, shifting the balance of influence in unexpected ways and opening new doors for American companies. The entire episode serves as a stark lesson in how protectionist measures, even when designed with clear objectives, can create unpredictable and far-reaching geopolitical and economic consequences, often reshaping alliances and markets in ways policymakers never intended. Amid mounting tariff pressure from the United States, Brazil found itself at a crossroads, navigating not only the complexities of international trade, but also the growing influence of global technology giants. The economic landscape was shifting rapidly, and Brazil's leaders faced tough decisions about how to protect their national interests. At the heart of this challenge was the urgent need to regulate digital platforms and online speech. As more Brazilians connected to the internet, concerns grew about misinformation, data privacy, and the unchecked power of foreign tech companies operating within the country's borders. Justice Alexandra de Moraes, a prominent figure in Brazil's Supreme Court, took a bold stance. He spearheaded efforts to combat disinformation and hold tech companies accountable, positioning Brazil as a leader in the global movement for stronger tech regulation and digital rights. However, these regulatory moves drew sharp criticism from then U.S. President Donald Trump. He denounced Brazil's actions as threats to free speech and American business interests, leveraging tariffs as a tool to exert political and economic pressure on Brazil, especially in the technology sector. The economic leverage wielded by the U.S. forced Brazilian officials into a series of high-stakes discussions with American tech firms, who were eager to influence the shape of Brazil's emerging digital regulations and protect their own market access. Brazil found itself caught in a difficult position, balancing its vision for digital sovereignty and the right to self-regulate against the very real economic pain inflicted by U.S. tariffs and the threat of losing vital trade relationships. Negotiations with big tech became a high-stakes game, with the future of Brazil's digital landscape and its ability to set independent rules hanging in the balance. Every decision carried weight for the nation's economy and its democratic values. This tense situation underscored the intricate connections between international trade, national sovereignty, and the growing power of multinational corporations in shaping policy. Ultimately, Brazil's struggle became a global example, demonstrating how nations must defend their regulatory authority and digital future, even as they face intense foreign economic pressure and the influence of powerful tech interests. President Trump's aggressive tariffs relied on a broad interpretation of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA. Historically used for sanctions, Trump claimed IEEPA allowed him to impose tariffs, a power usually reserved for Congress. Businesses and trade groups challenged this in court, arguing Congress never intended IEEPA to authorize broad tariffs. The government argued that emergency powers should be flexible, but the case became a test of the separation of powers. The U.S. Court of International Trade initially sided with the government, but the case moved to the Federal Circuit, where skepticism grew. This set the stage for a Supreme Court showdown over the true limits of presidential power. At the Federal Circuit, judges openly questioned whether IEEPA authorized tariffs, noting the statute's silence on taxing imports. They emphasized that the Constitution gives Congress, not the President, the power to regulate commerce and impose taxes. The court doubted Congress would delegate such a core function without clear language. This skepticism reflected concerns about executive overreach and the erosion of congressional authority. The Federal Circuit ultimately ruled that IEEPA did not permit unilateral tariffs, directly challenging the president's actions. This decision paved the way for the Supreme Court's historic review. The Supreme Court took up the case, recognizing its national and international significance. In a landmark 6-3 decision, the court ruled that IEEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. The majority opinion stressed that taxing and regulating foreign commerce are core legislative powers. The court found no clear congressional intent to delegate this authority to the executive. Legal scholars hailed the decision as a major defense of constitutional checks and balances. The dissent warned it could limit presidential flexibility in crises, but the majority's view prevailed. The ruling struck down all IEEPA-based tariffs, triggering an immediate shift in U.S. trade policy. The Supreme Court's decision places a firm guardrail on presidential use of IEEPA, clarifying it can't replace congressional trade legislation. This reasserts Congress's authority and may encourage lawmakers to play a more active role in trade policy. The ruling signals that major economic changes should come from consensus, not executive action. Future presidents will need to work with Congress to address emergencies, rather than acting alone. The decision strengthens the rule of law by demanding clear delegation of power. Critics worry it may limit rapid crisis response, but the ruling decisively shifts the balance back to Congress. The debate over presidential power continues, but the legal landscape has changed for decades to come. With IEEPA tariffs nullified, the U.S. faces a pivotal moment in trade policy. The immediate challenge is unwinding tariffs and retaliatory measures, requiring careful diplomacy. The ruling is expected to boost the economy by lowering costs and reopening export markets. Some industries will face renewed foreign competition, but overall, the decision ends the era of unilateral tariff action. Future policy will rely more on multilateral agreements and established international bodies. The US must now balance protecting domestic industries, national security, and global stability. Policymakers are more aware of the complexities of global supply chains and the risks of protectionism. The challenge ahead: craft a trade policy that is both effective and constitutionally sound. The Supreme Court's decision marks a watershed moment for the US and its global role. By curtailing executive power, the ruling reasserts Congress's authority over trade and ends a central pillar of the America First agenda. The case tested the limits of presidential authority and sent a message: emergency powers are not a shortcut for major economic policy. For countries like Brazil, the decision brings relief and shifts domestic debates on tech regulation. The US now returns to a more traditional, diplomacy-driven trade approach, but must repair relationships and rebuild trust. The ruling is a victory for checks and balances, but the debate over America's global role and internal power balance is far from over. How the US navigates this new era will define its leadership and the stability of the international order.